welcome to Seen Through Glass, welcome to the new Mercedes SL63 AMG. I say new in inverted commas because, well, this car isn't actually that new. It's been out like 18 months or so, but it is the newest and latest generation of the iconic Mercedes SL, and it's the first time I've had a chance to spend some time with one. Now come here quickly, because before we really get into it in this video, I kind of need to declare something. I've got a bit of a crush on Mercedes at the moment. I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, I think I know why, but it's a bit surprising because whilst I've always liked Mercedes cars, something about the sort of the badge, the brand, that's never lit my heart on fire in the same way that Ferrari, Porsche, Jaguar, heck, even Lamborghini do. I just never had the urge to buy one. But then I turned 35, and now that I'm an old man, there's kind of like key Mercedes attributes start to really appeal to me. High build quality, great engineering, luxury, premium, just quality. That's the kind of stuff I look for in a car that I might want to own. It's actually really ever since that I drove the EQS AMG a couple of years ago. Yes, an electric car, but a car that I really liked. And since then, every new sort of high-end Mercedes or AMG product that's launched, I've been like, oh, I want to have a go at one of those. Today, I'm going to ignore what the internet has said about this latest SL because they haven't been very nice. I think like 9 out of 10 reviews that you would read online say that this thing's a bit of a mess. But I never like to listen to what other people say about cars. There's plenty of cars that others like that I don't, plenty of cars that I like that others don't. So the only way to really figure it out is to get behind the wheel of it and see what I think for myself and see whether this kind of crush that I have in my head is actually a real thing. Like does it live up to these expectations in my mind, or have I just made that up because maybe my Instagram feed is just sending me a load of cool marks? Who knows? Let's go find out. I guess let's kick things off with how this car looks, because one of the main reasons why I asked Mercedes to borrow one, because I saw a ton of these cars out in California in the summer, and I thought, my God, they look amazing. Okay, maybe it's not as unique, as standout as previous generations of the SL, but that's because it now shares its platform with the AMG GT Coupe, so it can't be as unique. Maybe it's a little bit part spin. There are certain elements you can recognize from other Mercedes models, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good looking car. It's been in my house for a few days now, and every time I walk past the window, I look out and see it and think, oh, yes. Pulling up at cafes, getting in and out of it at the petrol station. I feel cool. I feel like it's a car that other people are going, look at that guy. What a whip. We're going to come back to the interior because that does carry over once you step inside, but I want to talk quite a lot about the interior when we pull over. Let's get straight into how it drives, because that's what I was most intrigued by. Like I just mentioned, if you looked at any of the reviews of this thing, you'd think it drives like a tank, but I disagree. I really like this car. It is a joy to drive. I can understand where some people are coming from in the sense where they think it's a bit confused. Let me touch on that now. Because it shares its platform with the AMG GT Coupe, it has a lot more of a sort of sportier edge than maybe previous SLs have. The ride, for example, quite firm. I'm in the comfiest setting right now. If I stepped it up to Sport or Sport Plus on this road, which I drive a lot, I'd be hopping and skipping everywhere. And it's not a light car, this car. It's just over 2 tons. When you unsettle it, it doesn't like it. On top of that, if you get on the brakes, you feel the whole car moving around. So you just want to just dial that all back. Of course, there's endless other performance modes, comfort, sport, sport plus, race, race master, all these different things. You can change this car in many different ways, but actually, I think the main thing to change is you as the driver. You have to set yourself up when you get behind the wheel. If you get drawn into the sort of sporty suggestions of this car, I think that's when you're going to struggle with it. If you think of it as an SL, if you think of it as a soft top convertible sports car to enjoy in so many different ways, to plod around in, to munch miles in, to take out on a day like today, you're not going to be that upset because it is glorious. If you dial yourself back, keep the car in Sport Plus and say comfort suspension settings, roll on and off that accelerator, get the back chat from the exhaust, and just use that torque band, which is huge, 800 Newton meters of torque. I mean, it's just endless. You never get in trouble. It's all-wheel drive now, this car. Nearly 600 horsepower, 577. It's just so enjoyable to drive. So whilst I understand why people knock it, I also think that they're just being a bit too serious. Lighten up, people. It's potentially... Second gear is terrifying in this thing. It's potentially a car that's most suited to people that really like cars, but just maybe haven't had that much experience with cars, or you know, they don't want the showiness of a Ferrari or a Lambo. They don't need the extreme dynamics of a Porsche. They just want a really good car that they can enjoy and that they can show off to their friends, and that their partner's going to be happy sitting in the passenger seat of, and makes a good noise, has got a good badge, got a lovely interior, feels quality, and this just ticks. Well, in a cliched British, is it still the summer? I'm not sure it is. It's like the 1st of September. But in a cliched British way, rain has started to roll through. Those bright blue skies and that sunshine from this morning, gone. Temporary, I think, at best. It's also freezing today. I was determined to drive that SL around with the roof down, but I can't feel my fingers anymore because it's like 11 degrees Celsius. So we decided to stop off here at the Snooty Fox, one of my favourite lunch stops when I'm filming. It's just outside Guildford. That might look like quite like a sort of basic ham and cheese sandwich. That's going to be a total vibe, and the coffee pretty solid as well. It has meant I put the roof up on the SL. It's now a soft top convertible. Long gone is that hard top roof that the previous generation had. I have to say, I quite like it. I'm not usually a big fan of a soft top convertible, but this one, I think it kind of works. However, despite all these positives, despite the fact that I like the way it looks, I like the soft top convertible, I really like the way it drives if you drive it in the right way. I have found some negatives with the SL. It's really got to do with the tech. That sort of thing that I was talking about of Mercedes, you know, engineering excellence. It feels like maybe some elements have been over-engineered. We'll get into it after I've had my sandwich, my coffee. I've got the feeling back in my fingers as we make our way to Mercedes World. Because I mentioned I have this new crush. I try to want to delve into exactly where it's come from, what it's all about, whether it is for the new cars or the old cars. So I thought I'd take one of their newest to see some of their oldest. Anyway, coffee and sandwich. I'll make a lot more sense after this, I'm sure. And people gave me a hard time for saying I don't really enjoy filming in the UK anymore. I mean, this weather. I mean, it's not as bad as it could have been, let's face it. The last few days, it's been near on monsoons, but it's just a bit depressing. Anyway, it gives me a chance to show you all what it's like to drive this car with the roof up, which is pretty good. It's fairly well insulated, this car, despite the fact it's got this fabric roof. I wouldn't say it's class leading. A Bentley Continental GTC is that a little bit quieter, but you would happily do many miles in this car with the roof up, and you would do many miles in this interior. It is really nice. I think it's very plush. Reminds me a little bit of the Maserati Gran Turismo interior. A little bit too much going on, like I don't really know if we need this ambient lighting in the aircon vents. But here is a prime example of what I'm about to get into. This is my traffic light view camera. What is that? What is the purpose of that? To show me the traffic lights? I can see the traffic lights. Does it think I can't? This is not a wider angle than my own eyes. Like there's so much going on in this car. It's a tad annoying. Now look, this is not specific to the SL. A lot of this you can find, well, in most modern day Mercedes. And actually, I first experienced some of this stuff back in the E63, which I think I drove in maybe 2020, maybe even prior to that, I don't know. It's not particularly new, but the fact that it's not that new, yet people have been complaining about it for a while, makes me think that Mercedes are going in the wrong direction. Mercedes was sort of clever enough to realise that when the roof goes down in this car, the screen reflects the sky and makes it a little hard to look at. So you've got this ability to tilt it, and you can actually change what sort of tilt it has, so hopefully eliminating any reflection. I do think that's clever, but when it's upright, it's like I'm almost straining to even look at it upright. Clearly, we are all discovering big old screens in convertibles, not fantastic. Something I've discovered in many other cars. But aside from that, the screen is good. Again, it's not as intuitive as other systems. I keep pushing things, expecting to find driver settings, something like that, but it's not. I have to keep going back. Okay, fine, here, you know, lane change assist. Maybe there's a smaller button that I haven't found yet. I don't know, I have to keep digging around. It's not, yeah, I would say BMW and Audi systems, just easier to figure out straight away. For example, Apple CarPlay, this tiny little button up here. I do find myself looking at this big screen a lot. I think Mercedes are aware that's going to happen. It actually gives you a warning when you start up saying don't get distracted by this. But it's really hard not to, because it's massive. But I like that it's vertical. I like the feel of it. Annoying that it's got the air conditioning controls in it, as everyone does. But anyway, now we get onto the roof. Sadly, I'm not going to put it down in this clip, but it took me a while to figure out how to actually put the roof down. So, if you're sitting in here now, see if you can spot the roof down button. Usually it's something up here, or a big button there, or a big button here. Nope. It's a tiny little button right down at the bottom here, in between the car vehicle settings and the 360 surround camera view. So it's a tiny little button. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll push that. And then it brings up this quite outrageous display, which up to 37 miles an hour you can utilize. The way you utilize it is by dragging that button over to the side and holding it. Now, the problem is, sometimes you don't hold it long enough, sometimes you don't slide it. It's just fiddly and annoying, and I'm like, what is going on? Luckily, you can do the same action by just pushing and then holding that tiny little button down there. So thank God you don't have to rely on the screen, but that button is annoyingly small and out of the way. And then if you're going to have that functionality, why have this functionality? Have you realized that that button's too small, so you need something bigger? And then look how quickly that times out. So if I'm driving somewhere and I quickly want to put the roof down, if I don't put, oh, and then that's gone, I'm going to push this again. Bad. In a convertible sports car, don't make putting the roof up and down quite so difficult, a punchy word, but sort of tedious and overthought through. And it goes beyond that. The door handles for this car seem to be the most complicated door handles in the world. I can never actually get the door handles to open. They go flush with the bodywork for, I guess, styling and aero purposes when you're on the move or when you step away from the car. But then to get them to pop back out, they never pop back out. So I'm just standing there kind of bashing the car, being like, let me in. The start-stop button is hidden behind this massive screen and the steering wheel. It's kind of awkward to get to. Look, my hand, if I just put my hand in normally, I'm bashing things. So I'm kind of reaching and it's tucked away down. Annoying. So all of these things that are just kind of like, it's just too much has gone on. And none of it is like overtly bad. It just seems annoying and unnecessary. So I don't really know what to make of it. I think there are things potentially you would get used to with time, but potentially would actually aggravate you more with time. Maybe you would just be desperate for simplicity. It's hard to know, and that's where maybe I can start to see that I don't think the car's confused, but it's just, yeah, a little bit over-engineered. But all is forgiven when you're able to, yes, forget about the tech and just drive and waft. And the sound system is fantastic, and the voice activated stuff does seem to work, and the CarPlay syncs very, you know, there's lots of goodness, but at the same time a bit too much silliness, which can be distracting. Anyway, onwards in our quest to discover whether I really do have a crush on Mercedes, whether I think these cars and this brand is a little bit better than it actually is in 2024. Well, this is interesting to kickstart. Here is the new AMG GT. So obviously this is the coupe version of what I'm driving today. It does look good. I think a few people were a little upset when it launched that it had grown, it got bigger, got the rear seats, four-wheel drive, but it looks sleek, I have to say. It's a little bit sexier than the SL. Look, here we go. Oh my God, it's as if Mercedes had planned this. So that's the 55 variant, and there's the coupe. The coupe does look better. This looks a little bit, the coupe looks more unique. This looks a little bit too, this is a bit A35 for me, where the coupe is like, oh yeah, that's a proper sleek thing. Oh, that's a really useful comparison to kickstart. Now, of course, alongside road cars, Mercedes has this insanely rich heritage and history in motorsport. I guess most noticeably Formula One, but actually that's a lie because they've been so dominant in so many different areas of motorsport over the decades that, well, the list is insane. But weirdly, it's not what I associate Mercedes with. If you said to me, name the 5 greatest Mercedes cars ever made, I don't think any of them would be racing cars. I always think of road cars. That's what interests and excites me. The stuff that I really like is the premium stuff. Could I get away with an S-Class? People would just think I'm an Uber driver. I don't really care. But yeah, I like the over-the-top stuff Merc is still doing. It's just, look at those wheels. They're almost the same size as me. They're the same size as my kid, for sure. Well, the truth is, having this thing on loan has increased my crush for all things Mercedes at the moment. I've genuinely really enjoyed spending time with this car, so much so that I've been like, I could have one of these cars. I kind of see it as like a bit of an F-Type replacement. I know I've actually replaced the F-Type with a Panamera because I'm a family man now, but I do think of this as an F-Type R convertible rival. Most people have kind of positioned it against a 911 Turbo, but this thing is nowhere near as dynamic as that, and I see it as more of a lifestyle car. It's like the new Maserati Gran Cabrio rival or an M8 convertible rival. The problem it's got is it's priced so much higher than those. Well, actually not more than the Maserati, but this thing starts like 170 grand plus, it's a lot of money. Luckily though, like a lot of big German cars, it does suffer from some pretty bad depreciation. So you can actually already pick up used SL63s for like 115 grand and used SL55s for like 90 grand. And at that point it starts to make a little bit more sense because it's just delightful. And I've been thinking more and more about, you know, why have people been so confused by this car? Why are people so put out by it? And it really just does come down to the badge, because what I've realized is this isn't really an SL. Speaking to a few people just now at Mercedes-Benz World who own SLs, they were kind of shocked by this thing. They hadn't really had a chance to see one, and they're like, that's an SL? They were old SL 500 owners and things like that. They were just like, That's because this, I think, is actually the successor to the old AMG GTC. One of my favorite modern day Mercs. That thing was spectacular. Obviously the convertible version of the AMG GT, but it sat somewhere between the GTS and the GTR. It was just sensational. And this really reminds me of that car. It doesn't remind me of previous SLs. But it's no bad thing. It's just the badging, I think, is where some of the confusion might lie. But if you are thinking of replacing an M8, if you were looking to replace a Jaguar F-Type, then yes. But if you're considering this as a rival to what? Yeah, 911 Turbo, Ferrari Roma Spider, I mean, that's a whole load of money more. DB12 Volante, I don't really know. The pricing's just a bit all off, but yeah, as a thing to add to your life, I mean, winner, chicken dinner. And as I would happily have one. It makes me even more excited for the new AMG GT Coupe. But I'm gonna keep my eyes on these things, because if they continue to plummet, like at 75 or 80 grand, I would snap one of these up in a heartbeat. And just, I don't know how I'd fit my daughter on that back bench, because it's not a seat, it's a bench. I'd have to chop her legs off. I think it'd be worth it. It's just, yeah, I'm a fan. As a wafter, I'm a big fan. Anyway, looks like it's about to absolutely rain cats and dogs. So let's wrap things up. I will see you next week.